4, 3, 2, 1.
Hello everyone, I'm hoping everybody has had a wonderful holiday season, a Merry Christmas, and if you don't celebrate any holidays, I just hope that you had a wonderful extended weekend and got to spend some time with family and friends. I'm sure you've been able to tell that I look just a little bit different in this video than I have in videos past. I did take the liberty of making the decision that I'll go ahead and do this one all natural, no makeup, no foundation, no eyelashes, lipstick, no doing my hair. Heck, I'm still in the yoga clothes I've been wearing today, so it was a weekend to relax. Didn't really do a lot this weekend. Don't really have any family to do anything with. I do have my roommates. We had a Christmas dinner. But other than that, I really didn't feel like doing much of anything. And I actually got some good advice from some of my friends on Facebook that said, basically, this time of year, from Christmas to New Year's, I should just be doing whatever it is I want to do and put no pressure to it and just do nothing if that's what I feel like. So, here I am. But with that being said, I also know that there are a few people out there that really do look forward to me doing these vlogs, and I want to make sure that I keep up on my end as well. One of my resolutions is to keep the motivation going and move on to other topics as we get through these beginning stages of my transition. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start talking about the things that we were going to discuss this time around. Where we're at now in my journey is I have graduated high school and I have gone off to serve in the United States Marine Corps. I served in the Marine Corps from 1992 to 2000. Basically came in right after the Gulf War and got out right before 9/11. So I served in a time of peace. When I originally had aspirations to join the military, of course, it was to do all the things that you typically get as far as rationale. I want to travel. I want to go to college and not have to pay for it. But I also had this very underlying need that my feminine side needed to go away because it had done nothing but hurt me and cause a lot of pain internally and externally, and it had to go away. I originally was going to enlist in the U.S. Army. I actually had spoken with an Army recruiter. I went and took my ASVAB test with the Army. And then the Marine Corps recruiter called. I wasn't going to talk to them because I didn't want to go that route. That was going to be much too difficult for me. And my grandfather, who I was living with, and also who had been a staff sergeant during World War II in the U.S. Army, was the one that convinced me to talk to the Marine Corps recruiter. He said that the Army's not going to offer me anything, and the Marine Corps was going to give me the best that I could get. So I entertained his idea. I talked to the Marine Corps recruiter, and I wasn't really sold on going that route until he had mentioned that I could go to Japan. And I can't say that it was really an aspiration of mine to originally go to Japan. However, I am a huge technophile. I'm a huge audiophile, technophile. I'm a geek. And I love technology. And technology was a lot cheaper in Japan due to exchange rates and everything else. And plus, it was a lot different and newer than it was in the United States. So I was all on board. Sure, I want to go. As long as you can get me to Japan, I will be happy. The rest is history. I left for boot camp 3 days after I graduated high school. And the only reason it was 3 days is because we graduated on the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, and they weren't shipping to boot camp on Monday because it was a holiday. So I shipped out on Tuesday. And I will say, the start of boot camp, the start of my MOS school, a lot of those things were going exactly as I had hoped they would go. My feminine side didn't have this itch to come out. I was burying it. It was great. It was what I had wanted to man it out of me. I did find out later, looking at some pictures I had taken or had taken of me during my MOS or military occupational specialty school, that really highlighted that I carried myself very femininely. I didn't see it. I thought I was being a macho masculine man. I didn't see it until I looked at these pictures later on and went, whoa, yeah, it's pretty evident I'm quite feminine. Regardless, I go through my schooling. I finish up December of 1992. I was lucky. I got my duty station choice of Okinawa, Japan, which you will hear me talking about throughout numerous videos. That place has my heart more than even Colorado does, and I'm a Colorado native. If I could drop everything and I could live over in Okinawa, have a job, have my health care, issues not be an issue, I absolutely would go in a heartbeat. You'd be seeing these videos from a beach over there. We all know that's not happening right now, so we continue on. I get over to Okinawa. I'm not fitting in with other members of my unit because, of course, I'm not as big and macho as they are. I'm a very different person. I have some issues personally that I have to work through that I really don't feel like talking about here, but it took some corrective action. Let's just put it that way. But I was very motivated. I was very dedicated to my team, my unit. Actually was put up for Marine of the Quarter Board. Actually got a certificate of commendation during a deployment to Korea, which pissed a lot of people off because they were the more macho. They were the ones that felt they deserved these things. Well, I was the one that actually showed that I deserved them. After being in Okinawa for a few months, that itch started to happen. And it was a very, very difficult itch to scratch. I do remember the first time I went out in town and bought a silk teddy. And I had to be very cautious of when I could wear it because of the fact that I had a roommate. And barracks rooms are very small. You basically have a bed of your own, a wall locker of your own, and everything else is shared. That was very difficult, but that itch started showing up. And I started addressing it. I re-upped my efforts to be more manly, be the better Marine. And I met my first wife over there. I started that path of doing what men are supposed to do. They're supposed to find a woman. They're supposed to fall in love. They're supposed to get married. Well, I found a woman. She was a great woman. She was Okinawan. We fell in love. And through time, we ended up getting married. And as I said, first wife, you can tell that meant we also got divorced. But it did give me a little bit more of a chance to scratch that itch. I thought I was being coy. I thought I was being clever, kind of manipulating situations where we experimented with things. like dressing me up. When she went to work, I would try on her clothes. I would do all of those types of things. One could equate it to what a cross-dresser would do because of the fact that it wasn't a lifestyle I was living. And if you look at the definition in the community, a cross-dresser is somebody that's doing it sometimes for sexual gratification. There definitely was some sexuality to it, but it took a lot of soul searching to find out who I really was. But it allowed me to get into that feminine side a little bit more. Not that it was greatly reciprocated, but it was a step forward. I stayed in Okinawa for 2 years, went to Camp Pendleton, California for 2 years. I was engaged to her at that time. And then I reenlisted, went back to Okinawa for 1 more year before I came on recruiting duty. That next time, that last year I was over in Okinawa, as soon as I got to the unit, there was an individual in our unit, never got to meet the Marine because he had gotten caught with a large bag full of women's underwear in his barracks room during an inspection, and he was being processed out of the military. The vitriol and just nastiness that they would talk about this individual really started driving deeper this fear that this itch that I had was wrong and it needed to be buried deeply, because I didn't want to be talked about that way. I didn't want to be rejected and ostracized that way. But that was a risk that I had to deal with. I focused on being smart, being motivated to keep my mind focused on the job and not on who I was. After that time in the Marine Corps, I ended up getting selected for recruiting duty, which I will say honestly was the worst part of the Marine Corps that I experienced. Not necessarily because of what happened to me personally on recruiting duty, but it had to deal with talking to people that you don't know, selling them something that could have a impact not only on their lives, but their families and friends' lives, and being held to a standard that you will accomplish this goal come hell or high water. That was very difficult. Very, very stressful part of my life, those 3 years. So I was lucky. After recruiter school, I got assigned to Northern Colorado. So being a Colorado native, that was great for me. I had married my first wife by that time, so she came to the U.S. with me. And while I was on recruiting duty, the itch really started to happen. I started to understand that there was a different way to pursue things, because the internet was a much bigger thing in 1997, and having access to a computer and internet compared to the early 90s. And eBay was a big thing, and you could order all sorts of stuff off of eBay. And I started ordering women's clothes off of eBay. Some new from catalogs, some used from women that were, back at that day, selling their items to individuals that had a panty fetish. And I had a decent collection of them. I kept them hidden from my wife. They weren't at our place. They were in my recruiting office, where they were found. And then all hell broke loose for me. You have to remember, this was back in the era of Don't Ask, Don't Tell. I was not going to tell that, oh, those are clothes that I wear. I said that they were clothes that I had gotten because I have a fetish, a sexual fetish. And even with saying that, I was still investigated by the command because they were concerned that me being around high school aged kids, that those clothes had belonged to some of those individuals. So the investigation went through. Of course, they found nothing because they were all bought either from catalogs or off of eBay, and I wore them. And I would do things such as self-gratification with them, because that's all I could do at that point in time in my life. I was very conflicted about who I was. I was extremely fortunate that even though I did get office hours for it, I, got in some serious trouble for dereliction of duty. My ability to re-enlist for a second time was denied, rightfully so. Missed out on picking up staff sergeant, rightfully so. But I still was able to get an honorable discharge, and I still was able to maintain my rank of sergeant. There's that going for me. I was denied any ability to re-enlist in the military, but that's perfectly fine. So that was my experience all the way up through my military career as I transitioned. There was a lot of it that was me not knowing anything about who I was, me not understanding that there was a separation between me wanting to be a woman or me wanting to experience gratification intimately from being a woman, or even as a woman. While I was on recruiting duty, I had my first experience with a male. And that experience, very oddly enough, was with an Army veteran that had served during Vietnam. And that was the first piece in the puzzle that I probably wasn't the first person to go down this path, really. But I didn't get a lot of support ever. And this continued to have impacts not only on my first marriage, but on my second marriage, and on my third and final marriage. So that pretty much brings us up to current times. Yes, there was a huge amount of time between 2000, when I got out, and now in 2022. But that was the whole military portion of my transition. I know it was a lot. I seem to be talking more and more as these videos progress. So I'm hoping that if there's a chance that somebody that's currently serving in the military sees what I've gone through, they can understand that we've always been there. There's no need to feel alone, and you don't have to do the stereotypical thing of you've got to be that macho man. You can admirably serve your country. You can give your life for your country and be transgender, and there's absolutely no less value to that than anyone else that has served their country or given their life to their country. I just wanted you to know that. With that being said, I want to go ahead and wrap this up. I know it's been a long conversation this time around. I do want to say again, I hope everyone had a great holiday, or are continuing to have a great holiday season. You had a Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, celebrating Kwanzaa, whatever holiday is that you do celebrate. I'm hoping that it was great. I know we've all got to get prepared for the new year coming up this next weekend and 2023 coming around the corner. I've got a lot of things that I want to accomplish next year. I've got some resolutions as well. If you'd like to share whatever resolutions that you have for this next year, please share them in the comments section below. And until next time, we will talk to you later. Take care.